Quantum computing. It's all over the news lately, right? Especially with AI, and investors are piling in. It's like everyone's trying to get a piece of the action. Companies like IonQ, D-Wave, Rigetti, their stock prices are through the roof.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's chasing the next big thing.
Exactly. But, sometimes chasing the hype doesn't always pan out. What do you think?
You're right. Hype can be a bit misleading. Today, we're going to dig into something a little different. It's a move in the quantum computing space by one of the Magnificent Seven that a lot of investors might be overlooking.
Okay, now you've got me curious. But before we get into that, let's make sure everyone's on the same page about the basics. We all know about classical computers with their bits, COs, and ones, but quantum computing, that's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Absolutely. Quantum computing relies on qubits. These qubits can be 0, 1, or even both at the same time. It's this mind-bending concept called superposition. Yeah. And it lets them handle incredibly complex calculations way faster than classical computers. Imagine looking at every single route on a map at once, instead of going through them one by one.
Ah, okay, so that's how they get that speed boost. But I've heard these qubits are pretty sensitive, is that right?
Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles right now is something called decoherence. Basically, qubits are super sensitive to their surroundings. Things like, vibrations, changes in temperature, or even stray electromagnetic fields can mess them up.
Really?
Yeah. Even cosmic rays can cause errors, according to Amazon's own scientists. It's a huge challenge in building quantum computers that are, reliable and stable.
So keeping those qubits happy, that's a big deal then. Okay, now I'm even more curious about this Magnificent Seven company you mentioned. Don't leave me hanging any longer. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Amazon. They just revealed their new quantum chip, Ocelot.
Amazon. Really? I wouldn't have guessed that. So what's so special about this Ocelot chip?
Well, what sets Ocelot apart is its design. It actually has error correction built right in. And that means it might need fewer qubits to get accurate results, so it could be way more efficient and cost-effective compared to other designs.
Fewer qubits for better results. That's pretty impressive, especially in a field where every qubit seems to matter. Now, this has got to tie into their AI ambition somehow, right? I mean, they've been investing heavily in that space.
You're absolutely right. Amazon's been building up its AI infrastructure for a while now. They put a whopping $8 billion into Anthropic, an AI research and safety company, and they've been developing their own AI chips like Trainium and Inferentia.
Right, and all that has been fueling the growth of AWS, Amazon Web Services. It's become a real profit machine for them.
Yeah, exactly. These AI investments have been huge for AWS, but that's just the start. Think about the possibilities if quantum computing comes into play, especially with this Ocelot chip.
That's an interesting angle. I hadn't thought about that. But how would that even work?
Well, picture this. Amazon offering quantum computing as a service through AWS. With Ocelot's potential to scale up, they could make this super powerful technology available to all sorts of businesses and researchers who, wouldn't be able to afford their own quantum computers.
Yeah.
This could give AWS a huge advantage, bringing in even more customers and driving even more growth and profits for Amazon.
So Amazon's making some pretty big moves in quantum computing, and it sounds like their existing infrastructure and experience with AWS could give them a real leg up. But what about their stock? I know it's taken a bit of a dip lately, which seems odd with all this potential.
It's true. Amazon's stock price is down about 11% in the past month. There are a few things going on. There are those macroeconomic worries like inflation, those new tariffs. It's making some investors nervous. Plus, there's a little hesitation about Amazon's capital expenditures. They're looking at spending over $100 billion this year.
Wow, that's a lot of money. No wonder investors are a little spooked. But wait, doesn't most of that spending go towards AWS? And we just talked about how well it's been performing, right?
You're exactly right. Most of that spending is aimed at AWS, which has been delivering strong results. And, there's something else to consider. Amazon's current price-to-free cash flow ratio, the PFCF, is at 69.
Okay.
That's significantly lower than its 5-year average of 104.
Okay, I'm sensing this is important. Could you explain why that PFCF ratio matters, especially in this situation?
Well, it could mean that even though the stock has dipped recently, Amazon might actually be undervalued right now, especially when you think about their growth potential and the huge possibilities of their AI and quantum computing initiatives.
So this dip could be a chance for investors who are willing to look at the long-term vision, particularly with this quantum leap they're taking.
It's a compelling argument.
This is a lot to take in. It's fascinating, but I think we need to dig a little deeper into all of this, especially for AWS. What do you say we take a quick break and then come back to explore it further?
Sounds good to me. When we were talking about Amazon maybe having an edge in quantum computing, yeah, that word scalability keeps popping up.
Hmm.
I was wondering if you could sort of break that down a little more for me. What does that actually mean when we're talking about quantum computing?
You know what? That's a great point. It's easy to throw around these buzzwords, right? So let's try to clarify it a bit. Right now, quantum computing is kind of like those, those old massive computers that used to take up entire rooms. Remember those? Super expensive, not very practical, and pretty limited in what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this idea of scalability comes in. Amazon, they've got tons of experience building this huge cloud infrastructure for AWS, and they're basically betting that they can do the same thing for quantum computing, make it accessible for everyone.
So it's like they're taking their AWS playbook and using it for quantum.
Precisely. They want to build this quantum cloud where anyone can just tap into all this incredible computing power whenever they need it without having to buy all this crazy expensive quantum hardware themselves.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with Amazon's track record. If they can actually make quantum computing accessible to anyone, the possibilities are, well, pretty much endless.
Absolutely. Think about the potential, right? We could see huge breakthroughs in drug discovery, material science, even financial modeling, and artificial intelligence. It could totally change entire industries.
It really is mind-boggling to think about the impact this could have. But, okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Amazon's not the only one in this race, are they? I mean, what are the other big tech companies doing in this quantum computing world?
Oh, it's a fierce competition, that's for sure. You got Microsoft, for example. They've been busy developing their own quantum computing platform, Azure Quantum. They're making serious progress.
And what about Google? I mean, they've always been right up there with AI research.
Oh, they're definitely a major player. Google's got their own dedicated quantum computing lab. And you might remember a few years back, they actually claimed to have achieved quantum supremacy. Basically, they said they did a calculation on a quantum computer that would be impossible for a regular computer to do in any reasonable amount of time.
So Amazon's got some real competition here. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Nope, not at all. It's a fascinating race to watch. All these tech giants, each with their own strengths and strategies. That's what makes it so exciting for investors, though, right? The stakes are high, and the potential payoff is huge.
Speaking of investors, this might be a good time to talk about the elephant in the room. How does anyone even start figuring out who the winners and losers in this race might be? I mean, what should investors be looking for?
That's the million-dollar question. It's definitely still early days. But, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, look at the company's track record. Have they consistently delivered these groundbreaking technologies? Have they been able to, bring them to market successfully?
Well, Amazon certainly has a pretty solid track record there. I mean, they completely revolutionized e-commerce and cloud computing, heck, even home assistants.
Exactly. They've shown time and time again that they can adapt, they can innovate, and they can execute on a massive scale.
Okay, so innovation and execution are key. What else should we be looking at?
The company's ecosystem. Do they have a good network of partners, developers, researchers, people who can actually contribute to their quantum efforts?
Yeah.
Because that's crucial for fast development and adoption.
It seems like Amazon is in a good spot with AWS. I mean, they've already built this enormous, really vibrant community around that platform.
And that's a huge advantage. They've got the infrastructure, the talent, and the experience to build a really thriving quantum ecosystem.
This all makes a lot of sense. Innovation, execution, ecosystem. Check, check, check. Anything else we should be thinking about?
Yeah, there's one more thing that I think often gets overlooked. Scalability. We've talked about it before, but it's really worth repeating. Can this company actually make quantum computing, accessible and affordable to lots of different users? Can they make it work in the real world?
So it's not just about making the most powerful quantum computer in some lab somewhere. It's about actually bringing that power to everyone in a way that's practical and affordable.
Exactly. And that's where Amazon's expertise with scaling cloud services through AWS could really be a game changer. They've already figured out how to build and manage these huge, complex infrastructures. And they can take what they've learned and apply it to the quantum world.
All right, so we've made a pretty compelling case for Amazon, but I have to ask the question that I'm sure everyone's thinking right now, given everything we've talked about, is Amazon stock a buy?
Well, like with any investment, it really depends on your personal goals and how much risk you're comfortable with. There's no magic answer that works for everyone, but I do see some really strong reasons to be optimistic about Amazon in the long run.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the highlights.
First off, their cloud business, AWS. It's
Yep.
a powerhouse. It's growing like crazy, and it's bringing in tons of cash. It's really the engine driving their growth and profitability.
Right, right. We talked about that earlier. AWS is a force to be reckoned with.
Second, their big investments in AI, including quantum computing. This puts them in a prime position to be a leader in some of the most game-changing technologies of the future. These are massive growth markets, and Amazon's getting in early.
It's like they're planting seeds today that could grow into these huge trees in the years to come.
Exactly. And lastly, even though their stock has dipped recently, which we discussed, I think they're in a great position to keep growing and innovating for years to come. They've got a clear vision, they've got a proven track record, and they've got this culture of, just relentless innovation.
So even with all the uncertainty in the market, Amazon's long-term prospects look really bright. It's not just about the stock price today, it's about their potential to reshape whole industries in the future.
You hit the nail on the head. Investing in Amazon is a bet on their ability to keep disrupting and innovating. And these quantum computing efforts, that's a perfect example of that.
We've covered so much today, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this quantum revolution. It's a truly mind-blowing topic.
It really is. And as much as we've explored the potential benefits, it's also important to think about the potential risks, too. Quantum computing is an incredibly powerful technology. And you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
You're right. We've been focusing on the good side of things, but there are always two sides to every coin. What sorts of risks should we be considering when it comes to this quantum computing stuff?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is cybersecurity. Quantum computers could potentially crack the encryption algorithms that we use to protect our data online. Imagine what could happen if our current encryption methods suddenly became useless. It could impact everything, from financial transactions to national security.
That's a pretty scary thought. It sounds like we'd be opening ourselves up to a whole new world of vulnerabilities.
It's a valid concern, no doubt. But there's some good news here, too. Researchers are already working hard to develop new encryption methods that can withstand these quantum attacks. It's a constant back and forth, but it's an area where there's a lot of research and development happening.
So it's like a game of cat and mouse, but hopefully we can stay ahead of the game. What other risks should we be watching out for?
Another big one is the ethical side of things. We've already seen how AI can be used in ways that are biased or discriminatory. Well, the same problems could come up with quantum computing. Who's going to have access to this incredibly powerful technology? And how do we make sure it's used ethically and doesn't make existing inequalities even worse?
Those are really important points. We can't just focus on the technology itself. We have to think about how it affects society as a whole.
Absolutely. We need ethicists, policymakers, researchers, everyone working together to figure out guidelines and safeguards for quantum computing. It's not just about preventing harm, it's about making sure the benefits are shared fairly.
This is a lot to take in. It feels like we're at the start of a whole new era, one that's full of incredible opportunities, but also some very real challenges. It's exciting and a little bit scary all at the same time.
I totally agree. It's a crucial moment in technological history, and it's really up to all of us to shape how quantum computing develops in a way that benefits everyone. We need to approach it with both excitement and a healthy dose of caution.
Well said. This has been an incredible deep dive into quantum computing and Amazon's jump into this new territory. What's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the big takeaway here is that while everyone's looking at all these flashy new quantum computing companies, Amazon's strategy might be the smarter play, even if it's not as obvious. I think that's right. Their experience with AWS, their focus on AI, and how they always emphasize scalability, all those things give them a real advantage in this new market.
It's like they've been quietly setting themselves up for this all along.
Yeah, exactly. Laying the groundwork while other companies are chasing those, quick wins.
But as always, with any investment, you got to do your homework right. Weigh the risks and the rewards before you jump in.
Absolutely. Due diligence is key. No investment is a sure thing. And, this whole quantum computing field is still changing so fast.
We've talked about a lot today, but I want to leave our listeners with one last thing to think about.
Go for it.
Think about the bigger picture with quantum computing. How is this going to shape the future of AI? And how will it change our lives in ways we can't even imagine yet?
Those are the questions that really make you think, aren't they? The possibilities are just incredible. It's like we're right on the edge of this whole new technological era. It's exciting, but also a little bit scary,
It's definitely a future worth thinking about and preparing for. And that's what we try to do here, right? At the Deep Dive. We try to help you navigate these complicated waters, especially when things are changing so quickly.
Yeah, it's been great diving deep with you today.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve.